The story begins with a middle-aged man named Bae, an ordinary person struggling to survive the high cost of living in Korea. Life would have been manageable if he lived alone, but his young daughter was born with a serious illness. Her condition is getting worse, and now she urgently needs surgery to survive. Bae's salary is nowhere near enough to cover the medical costs. He can barely pay rent, and on top of that, he's already drowning in debt to loan sharks just to keep up with daily expenses. Desperate and out of options, he decides to borrow even more money for his daughter's treatment. He knows it's risky. He hasn't even paid off his previous debt, but he can't think clearly anymore. In his desperation, he even uses his own organs as collateral and promises to repay everything after the surgery. But things only get worse. Right after receiving the loan, the money is stolen. Soon after, his daughter suddenly collapses and needs immediate surgery. Completely hopeless, Bae rushes her to the hospital for first aid while he desperately searches for another way to get money. At this point, he realizes there's no quick or easy way left to earn the money he needs. The only option he can think of is robbery. He hates the idea of committing a crime, but he can't bear the thought of losing his daughter. Wearing a mask and holding a knife, Bae enters Myo Bank and demands money from the clerk. His shaking hands and nervous voice make it clear he's not cut out for this. One of the bank employees secretly sends an emergency signal to the police. As if things couldn't get worse, Bae's plan falls apart when three professional robbers storm the bank at the same time. Unlike Bae, they are armed with rifles and clearly know what they're doing. Overpowered and outmatched, Bae quickly loses control of the situation and ends up becoming a hostage to the very criminals he tried to beat. During the chaos inside the bank, one of the gang leaders gets injured and falls unconscious. This makes the situation even messier, but it also gives Bae a chance to turn things around. He grabs the fallen leader's rifle and points it at the other robbers. Not wanting to risk a fight, they reluctantly agree to cooperate with him for the time being. Meanwhile, the police receive the emergency signal from Myo Bank and quickly send officers to the scene. They soon realize the situation is serious. Among the officers is Detective Koo, a corrupt detective who becomes very nervous when he hears the news. Myo Bank is the place where he secretly hid records of his illegal dealings. To the public, Detective Koo looks like a model officer who truly cares about justice. He even gained fame as a UNICEF Goodwill Ambassador, but behind the scenes, he's been hiding his crimes for years. With his career and freedom now at risk, he secretly sends one of his men to retrieve the hidden file while he heads to the bank himself. Soon, Myo Bank is surrounded by police and journalists. The robbery becomes headline news because innocent civilians are being held hostage. Detective Koo steps forward as the trusted officer chosen to negotiate with the robbers, pretending he wants to save the hostages. In reality, he only wants to make sure his secret file is secured. Inside the bank, Bae is hesitant to talk to him. He worries that the detective just wants the hostages released. But Bae finally agrees to negotiate on one condition. The police must order the hospital to perform his daughter's surgery immediately. At the same time, Detective Koo secretly signals his man to open the safe containing his illegal records, but the attempt fails. Even so, Detective Koo proudly announces that he prevented any deaths during the crisis. The police chief is impressed and gives him more responsibility. Some of his fellow officers suspect he has hidden motives, but they have no proof. Elsewhere, the loan sharks grow tired of waiting for Bae to repay his debt. They kidnap his daughter from the hospital, not realizing that the police had already planned to move her for safety during the negotiation. When Detective Koo's team arrives to find her, she is already gone. Detective Koo starts to panic, worried that the negotiations might fail. He rushes to the hospital and checks the CCTV footage to track the kidnappers. That's when he discovers the truth. The loan sharks kidnapped Bae's daughter. He immediately begins searching for them. Meanwhile, Bae still believes his daughter is safe in the hospital. But everything changes when a neighbor sent to convince Bae to give up accidentally lets the truth slip. When Bae hears this, he is furious. He completely loses trust in Detective Koo and the police. Feeling betrayed and desperate, he no longer knows who he can rely on. Inside the bank, the situation becomes even more tense. Even the robber who had been cooperating with Bae starts doubting the police, and the two begin to argue. At the same time, Detective Koo's men take advantage of the chaos and sneak back into the bank's safe, trying once again to retrieve the files of his illegal transactions. Back outside, Detective Koo finally tracks down the loan sharks, but Bae's daughter isn't with them. They reveal that they hid her in an animal shelter, believing it was the safest place to avoid police attention. Ku quickly takes the girl to the hospital so she can have her surgery. Surprisingly, Ku begins to change. Instead of taking bribes for himself, he uses his influence for good. He forces the loan sharks to pay the hospital bills so Bei's daughter can receive treatment. For a moment, everything seems to be going well, but other detectives at the scene start warning the police chief that Ku's plan could fail and put the hostages in even more danger. Not wanting to risk more lives, the chief decides to send in a tactical team to storm the bank and rescue everyone. Bei is eventually told that his daughter has been found, but by now he trusts the police even less. He senses something suspicious about their movements and decides to take matters into his own hands. He asks his partner for help to escape the bank and check on his daughter himself. They come up with a plan. His partner pretends to be a released hostage who needs to be taken to the hospital. The act works perfectly. The police are fooled. During the ambulance ride, Bei manages to escape and runs straight to the hospital. At this point, the hostages are no longer afraid that Bei will hurt them. They can see that he never wanted to kill anyone. He's just a desperate father with no other way to save his daughter. Unfortunately, the police rushing to storm the bank only makes the situation worse. They act too quickly, even though Detective Ku has already fulfilled Bei's main request. The hostages are rescued, but Bei refuses to give up. He keeps resisting and even manages to take one of the officers hostage. He feels he has no choice. He needs to hold on until he is sure his daughter is completely safe. The police don't want to take any risks. The moment Bei lets his guard down, they shoot him. 2 bullets hit his body, and that's the end of his life. Tragically, Detective Ku arrives just moments later with the news Bei had been waiting for. His daughter's surgery was successful, but the police acted too fast, and Bei never got to hear it. After everything settles, Detective Ku finally recovers the files of his illegal transactions. Yet the ending still feels bittersweet. Bei is gone, and his daughter has lost her father. This experience changes Detective Ku completely. Feeling guilty and responsible for Bei's death, he asks his men to take care of the little girl as a final apology and gesture of kindness. In the end, the story reminds us how far parents are willing to go for their children, even risking their own lives to keep them safe.